Well, hello everybody. Welcome to this webinar. My name's Shane O'Rourke, but I'll be introducing Jack Horton in a moment as the main presenter. But thank you for joining us. This is been dubbed the Surveyor Workshop. Really what we want to do is show you Autodesk technology that really assists and works for surveyors. And this webinar is a condensed version of some live presentations we did mainly across the east coast of Australia to talk about Autodesk technologies and where it helps surveyors and the surveying industry. So we'll be getting into that. We're actually allocated ourselves 2 hours for this, so I appreciate that it's a good chunk of time, but it is a cut down of the original 3-hour face-to-face. In the original spectrum of the surveyor workshops, we did a number of different surveys, but we also then looked at GIS and Dynamo as part of the equation of utilities for surveyors. This session won't include the GIS and Dynamo components. However, I encourage you to have a look probably early next week on our YouTube page, because we'll be publishing up a recording of one of the live sessions from that. So just a few housekeeping items. This webcast is certainly being recorded, so if you have to dip out at any point or you'd like to watch it later, we will be posting this up. At the end, we will sort of mention the YouTube channel and where you can go to review this at your pleasure. We appreciate that this should be an interactive event. We have a question and answer panel. Please pop any questions you have during the presentation in there, and anything relevant to the webcast we'll certainly look to address either in the background or as relevant live with Jack on the tools. Anything we can't answer during the session, we'll certainly look to try and answer at the end. So I'm going to introduce Jack, and then I will give an overview to this session. So Jack Horton's our resident surveyor.
G'day all.
And welcome, Jack. Jack's been with us a number of years now, and basically his role is to assist customers in understanding Autodesk technologies and other applications associated with that for surveying. So as I did say, I'm going to take this off a little bit for an overview, and then I'll hand back to Jack to go through the details as a replica of what we did live with the face-to-face events. So the agenda for this session is to firstly just give you a very quick industry overview. I'm not going to belabor any main points, but I just want to give you the framework of where Autodesk fits in the survey industry, and certainly a little bit about trends and a sort of overview of what Jack's going to cover. Our agenda then moves into Jack giving you some live presentation. He'll be doing sort of 3 different ways of approaching survey from 3 different sources. So we'll be looking at COGO points, importing, editing those, Travis editing, Civil 3D functionality in terms of least squares and those sorts of things. And then Jack will take you through a conventional survey approach, typically total station, processing raw observations, automating break lines, generating survey output. And then we'll also have a look at what Autodesk are doing around reality capture. And this extends more than just sort of importing and processing a point cloud. It's about linear feature extraction, making sense of the cloud data. So we'll sort of show you sort of where Autodesk technologies fit in there. So just as a general summary, in terms of an industry overview, I had a bit of a think about this when I initially created the PowerPoint and the presentation opening, and I was thinking about where surveyors participate in the overall industries of architecture, engineering, and all construction. And I came to the stark realization that anything of import is always under the control and auspices of surveyors. Surveyors are always participating in that. I mean, bridges don't go in the right spot, tunnels don't connect in the middle. Landowners don't know what land they own without the participation of surveyors. So surveyors are involved in every part of a project, from pretty much the concept, the original site establishment, right through to the construction, the quality assurance side, the maintenance. And certainly your industry has changed dramatically. The demand for digital delivery is changed across the entire industry, but certainly reality capture, point clouds, drone surveys are certainly becoming the norm rather than the exception. The demand for data centralization and data reuse is also increasing. So the expectation amongst industry taking survey data and moving it up into the design area is that nothing's lost and nothing's wasted. And certainly Autodesk have a clear objective to support industry and participate in that journey into the digital design environment with certainly the aim is seamless collaboration through all the project phases, and the idea of centralization of data is certainly somewhere that Autodesk is moving into, and building applications that A, all talk to each other neatly, and B, all can collaborate across a cloud platform so that everybody can see the model and the information all at once. So what we're going to be doing in this session is really focusing on Autodesk's collection of applications to address architecture, engineering, construction industry, and certainly the surveyors are key to that. There are sort of four main applications that I pull out of that collection and sort of highlight as useful, highly useful and highly relevant to surveyors. Certainly at a sort of data in, data processing, and data out perspective, Civil 3D is the main platform for that, built on an AutoCAD base, but it supports traditional surveying, surface analysis, parcels, land development side, labeling, reporting, and outputs. So Civil 3D is sort of that grunty engine to bring data in, edit data, and process outputs. And then you have Recap Pro, which does attach to all AutoCADs and most other applications as a pre-processor for point cloud data. And what Recap Pro does is let you edit the cloud in a detailed way, but then share that seamlessly across all of the other products you see in this collection, as well as other applications within the AEC collection. Autodesk Infraworks is noted there. I mean, myself as a civil engineer, I'm totally excited about it. It's conceptual design, and layout roads and rail and bridges, and it's got this fantastic connection back to Civil 3D. At a surveying front, Infraworks is actually a place where you can intelligently assess that point cloud. You can do linear feature extraction, vertical extraction for cars and trees and signs and all that sort of stuff, and basically provide to whoever you're handing off your survey data to some information about that cloud. You know, the decision about what is a break line, what is a main feature, what is the key information. So Jack will sort of touch on that as well. The Navisworks Manage is listed there because you know, if nothing else, it does an amazing job at clash detection. So if you've got data, say a wall, and then point cloud data or point data you've picked up, you can basically check offsets of that data from the wall and make some assessments there. It's also great for construction sequencing. I mentioned here the Autodesk Construction Cloud, not something we'll cover in this session, but what it is a centralization of all the model data. So everything you sort of create in this upstream area, the Construction Cloud can look at, and it's purpose-built to handle 3D data from multiple industries, so you can assess it all at once, make sure it works, and then through the Construction Cloud, you can manage the whole project through the construction phase. So it's got issues reporting, it's got plan approvals, processes, and the like. All web-based so that anybody can get access to that, whether they're on site, in the office, or in another country. Okay, so I'm just going to run through a few videos here on sort of Autodesk technology. And this is a show of Recap Pro and with a focus on sort of the photo processing side of Recap Pro. But basically what it will let you do is to bring in cloud captured data, process that data. From that, you can assess the cloud information, make edits. It's obviously got the ability to sort of rationalize and connect everything together. And out of that, you can also fairly rapidly create mesh information for downstream consumption. So Recap Pro is your preprocessor to index the cloud. And from that, you can then skin out surface data. You can then skin out a mesh and share that around. From a conventional survey front, what you're looking at here is Stringer Topo, which is a third-party application to automate the process of conventional survey. But really what's happening here is we're looking at raw observations. We're able to track those. We're able to see a report of misclose errors or tolerance problems. You can watch your survey progress through moments in time. Support transformation of data, so you can do Helmert and Affine transformations. And one of the other mainstays in the software is the idea of automating the breaklines. So in a topographical survey, you want to quickly get the software to digitize what you've picked up in the field as important asset information. You know, it could be edge of a road, invert of a drain, top of a bank, and certainly this high-level automation at that end. There's also conformance reporting if you're doing any QA checking as constructed versus designed, and you can certainly publish outputs. So you can see here we're pushing out a typical legend table, but there's certainly production outputs available as well. So the other slide I just want to talk about is that combination of reality capture with Infraworks. So this is actually a visualization of your point cloud in Infraworks being assessed here for different aspects, but now it's been skinned. And what Infraworks will do is to automate the assessment of vertical features. You can see here it's picked up trees and cars and buildings and basically pulled them out of the cloud data, but then created a physical representation of that for you to use. And additionally, you can also pull out linear feature extraction. So if you're doing point cloud survey data, the pickup's nice and quick, but handing that off to, say, an engineer and saying, well, here's the center line of the road is actually the challenge. And there are some tools in Infraworks to allow you to sort of intelligently walk the features and then assess them and send them back to Civil 3D. So Jack's just going to give you a bit of a show on some point cloud data that he has available on that sort of feature data extraction. So he'll give you a bit of a live show on that. So I will sort of skip forward from there, and now what I'm going to do is hand over to Jack. So Jack's going to take you through down into the weeds, walk you through the details of the capabilities of Civil 3D and aspects of the AEC Collection. So Jack, over to you.
Thanks, Shane. Just to confirm, you can see my screen now correctly?
Yes.
Correct? Cool. All right then. So thanks for that, Shane. Thanks for the introduction. Today, we're going to be going on a number of journeys. We're first going to be looking at bringing in a GPS survey, and then we'll be using that survey to do a traverse adjustment. We'll then be having a look at how you can go about doing a least squares adjustment, followed by bringing in PPK information. Once we've gone through that, we'll have a look at bringing in a raw observational file and then two different ways of applying the control to that file before we move on to point clouds. Now with point clouds, we'll be having a look at how you can bring in the file, how you can work with it, how you can strip data out, and how you can move it into Infraworks to start doing linear and vertical feature extraction. Time permitting, we'll have a look at parcel creation. However, we are going to be doing a webinar on parcel creation in the near future that will go far more in depth. So the first thing we want to do is we actually want to bring in our GPS information. So we're going to go to points and point creation tools. Now within the point creation tools, you have a number of ways to go about creating points, either via manual selection, offset, bearing distance, all those. But the one we're curious about at the moment is import points. So by selecting this, we'll open up the import points interface where we're able to select a file to bring in. In this case, I'm going to bring in a CSV file. However, you can bring in text documents and that as well. Now, one thing to note is that when I brought this file in, I've been given a preview, and this is currently using the point file format that is highlighted here to read the file that I brought in. Now, I know this isn't correct because looking at this, I can see my easting is 1, northing is 63, whatever, and point elevation is off. So what we want to do is we want to get this to where we know this looks correct. In this case, I want to be going point, easting, northing, zenith description. And if I look down here at the preview, I can see that this now looks to be correct. And I can then go about bringing in this data. You have a number of different options to work with here, and you are able to add more to this interface as you need. Next up, you have add points to point group. This is very handy if you have if you're bringing in this information and you're wanting to apply it to a point group directly, and we'll cover these in more detail shortly. However, if you wish to apply it to a point group, you can simply tick that on and add it to any point group that's currently in the drawing. For this case, however, I will leave that ticked off. Once you're ready to bring the information in, select OK, and that information will be brought into the drawing. Now, just quickly before we go any further, you can actually see that it's already applied a block and a label style to this point. And the reason that it's applied that information is that if I go into properties, you can actually see here that we have a style applied to the point, which is giving it the block information. And then we've got a label style, which is deciding how the labeling is being chosen. And the reason that these have been applied is due to our raw description that you can see here, which is 018. Now, due to the fact it's found 018, it's looking at our tool space. So tool space is where all of your information about your survey resides. And within here, we have something called the description key set. And description key set looks for the raw description and applies a style or a style and a label style based on the information it finds. So the tool space can be accessed in two separate ways. You can either type it into the command line down here to open it up, or if you're within the home ribbon, you're able to open it through here. So if we drop down the settings and I drop down point styles, we can see all of the point styles that are currently being used for this survey. So these are all the blocks that is currently going to be applying to various points. If I right click on one of these and go edit, it opens up the interface where we're able to edit each of these point styles. You can see a list of all the blocks currently loaded into this drawing here. And what might interest some people is that if you wanted to bring in a block that's external to this drawing, a little trick you can do is you can right click within the interface here and go to browse, and you can bring in another DWG with that block information to apply it. You can create a new block by simply right clicking up here and going new, or by right clicking and going copy on any of these points. That will make a copy or a new point style for you to freely edit. If you wish to work with label styles, you can go to label styles here and see all of the ones that are currently available within our template. And earlier we saw that station was the one being used for this point. If I right click and go to edit, it'll bring up the label style composer. You can see here a preview of how all this information is going to look. And you've got various options within here to be able to customize this to your liking. I won't go in depth on this today. If anyone is curious about what you're able to do with this interface, let me know and I'm happy to go through it with you. Now we need to bring all this information together, and that's accomplished through the description key set. You'll see here we have both an alpha and a numeric description key set to work with. For today, I'll be using numeric. However, you can have both used in tandem. Now, this here is a description key set editor. If I look through our data, we can actually see that we're looking for 018. So if I go looking for that one, 018, you can see that we're applying a style whenever it finds a raw description of 018 of 018 bike, and we're applying a point label style of station. And all of this is being applied to the point to make what you see here. So now that we've got that out of the way, we've seen how a point is being formed, why it's being formed the way it is. We can now have a look at an adjustment. So if I drop down Travis and go to Travis Editor, that will open the Travis Editor interface. Now, the way to get started is you want to select an occupied point. So this is the point that you first set up on, and then you set your backside angle. This will generally, well, it will always be the point that you backsided when you originated the survey. From there, you want to select your first Travis line and continue to go around the survey in such a way, making sure that you get every single one of your Travises, and if you do any radiations, to add those in also. So I'm just going to finish this one off here. And then at the end, I'm going to introduce some error into the survey. As currently, when I did the survey, I did not have a final point to set up on. So I'm just going to introduce some error here so that we have something to adjust for. So as you saw, I didn't actually need to select that final point. You can select anywhere in the drawing. So it's highly recommended that you have snap on when you're doing this. Now, what you want to do is you want to save a Traverse file. That can be found here. And you just want to save this in a location where you're able to find it again. So I'm just going to call this Traverse, and then I'm going to go save. Just trying to override one of my old ones. Sure. So we're overriding that Traverse. We've saved this in a location, and now we want to apply an adjustment to it. So we no longer need the editor. We've told it where the Traverse is. The software now knows it's there to work with, and we've saved that information into another file. We then want to drop down Traverse, and this time we want to go to Traverse Adjustment. Once you're in the Traverse Adjustment interface, you want to drop down Traverse Source and go looking for the one that you've just made. So Traverse TR-V2, this is the file that we just had. Once you've opened it, you'll get a readout of what exactly it's doing currently. You'll have a default method that the software will apply at any time, and that can be controlled through the settings here. So you can see I have compass ticked on to default. For anyone who doesn't recognize the term compass, you may recognize the term bowdage instead. We can thank the Americans for changing the name on us. But you're also able to toggle on the rest of these adjustments and go apply to have all of the different adjustments shown to you. Now, I highly recommend only having one of these toggled on at a time, as it means you'll only have that option. If I drop down adjustment to apply here, you can see I have a list of all of them. However, I only want to apply compass. By having them all toggled off except for the one that you wish to apply, it means you're not going to accidentally apply one of the other ones when you don't intend to. So we have our Traverse here, we have our adjustment information here, and we want to apply it. You simply go to Apply Adjustment down here, and it'll ask you to save this as a new TRV2 file. So I'm just going to call this one Traverse Compass 3. It's saved that file. And if I now zoom in here, you'll see that we have a new set of line work ready to go for our new adjustment. This can then be used to import into Connect, as I will show you later, or it can be used to open up a new file and bring in the rest of your points in there with the new Traverse. So that was how you would go about applying an adjustment to a Traverse you've done in the field. Next up, we're going to have a look at a least squares adjustment. So I'm going to close adjustment off now and just open up a new file. And the first thing we want to do is we want to open the tool space. So what we're able to do is there is an add-on for Civil 3D, which is called the, I've gone to the wrong one. Sorry, under survey, you've got the survey databases. I'm getting ahead of myself. You're able to arrange for a survey database, and you're able to bring in an FPK file, which has the information needed to do a least squares adjustment. You can also arrange this manually if you wish. So what we want to do here is we want to create a new local survey database. So you simply right click and create a new one. We'll call this one LSA, least squares adjustment. and just save that. You will then see that we have a new survey database to work with. And what we want to do is we want to import our information. So I'm going to right click on import events and go import survey data. Now you're able to specify the database here. In this case, it's already pre-highlighted LSA, as that is the one that I selected here. However, if you wanted, you can apply this to various other databases you have loaded in here. This is not limited to the drawing you're already in. A survey database can be accessed from any drawing you open. So I do want to apply it to LSA, so I'm going to leave that one highlighted and I'm going to go down to specify data source. Now you've got a few different formats to work with here. If you have points in the drawing, you can work with that. A point file, a land XML file, all of these are accessible. The one I'll be working with today is a fieldbook file. And I'm just going to open this one up here. Once done, it's going to ask me to specify which network I want to apply this to. In this case, I don't have a network already created in the drawing, so I want to go create new network, and I'm just going to call this here network and with a same description. Once done, you'll see we now have a network to apply here, and if we actually look over at the tool space, you'll see we have networks and the network we just created. I'm then going to drop down and go to import options. I do recommend having these options here on, as it will import all of your information into the drawing as you click finish here. We don't wish to abort the import process, so we're going to go no, and we should see all of our information load into the background now. So here we can see all of our traverse lines along with all of our radiations, and we're going to apply the least squares adjustment to this. So we're going to drop down network and we're just going to check the information. Because the fieldbook file is able to hold a lot of this information already, we can check the control points and go, yes, I did set up on those points. They're the ones I want to hold. The directions I see here are correct. And the setup information I see here all looks good to go. I then want to tell the software, okay, you've got all this information, but my actual traverse was this. So you're going to go into new traverse. We're going to just call it trav. Same for the description. And then you're simply going to tell it what your initial station is. So we set up at 1, and you can see it's already gone, okay, you've given me all this previous information. You've told me to set up at 1. I'm just going to follow the traverse from this point on. So it's pre-filled in all the rest of the information that we possibly could need. Once you're done, go OK. Go back to network, right click and go down to least squares analysis and go perform analysis. Here you are able to adjust a variety of different options about the least squares analysis you're about to perform. You can choose whether or not how it's going to be adjusted, the network. You're able to choose whether or not it's going to be a 2D or a 3D adjustment type. You're able to choose the number of iterations the software is going to run before it gives you its final solution. The coordinate convergence it's going to get to when it's bringing all the points inwards. And then you're also able to set the confidence level of the least squares adjustment. So 95 or 99%. Once you're happy with the settings found here, go OK. And it will run the least squares in the background along with giving you a report to read through. This can be saved and you can leave this in your file to be used later on. So that is how you would go through and apply a least squares adjustment. So I'll just close this down and we'll move on to our PPK import method. Now with the PPK, this is a really interesting file format that I've recently come to learn about, and I want to pass this information on to you. So there is a extension for Civil 3D within the Autodesk app, which you're able to download, which is called the PPK extension. And through this, we're able to bring in a post-process schematic survey directly into our Civil 3D file. So if I right click on this and go to execute, we'll be treated to the post-process kinematic survey interface. And what you're able to do is you're able to have a Rhinex base and Rover file loaded into here and have a variety of information presented to you. So you can drag and drop these files directly if you wish, or you can go to search I'll just navigate to my file. So you can see here, I have two different folders to work with here. I have base and I have rover. So if I open up the base, I can load in this information. So we can see here, all my base information has been loaded in. It's telling me where it's got it all from. And then I just want to bring in my rover information. So these are just listed as the GNO files that you can export from your base and rover setup. So you can see that these have been loaded in here. And now what I want to do is I want to go to process. So this is going to read through all of the information that my base and rover have picked up, and it's going to give me a variety of information about my base and rover setup. So you can see here, it's gone through, it's applied it all. I'm actually using the online map data within Civil 3D to get my aerial image also loaded in at the same time. And you're actually able to set how each of these points are coming out. So you can see here, I have a variety of symbols being used. If I go to options and then I go to point styles, I'm actually able to set what each of these points are going to look like. Furthermore, if I go to data grid, I'm also able to turn off and on a variety of different information, which can then be shown within these columns here. All this information can be reviewed, processed, and then exported and brought, well, into your survey. So you're able to export it out and you can insert it into your survey. So if I go insert, it's now brought all that information into Civil 3D for me to work with going forward. So just a little known method of importing your GPS data that not many people seem to know about that I find to be really cool. Now, let's get into bringing in a raw observation file, what I'm sure a number of you are here to see. Now, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to just select this tab here, and then we want to bring in our file. Before we do so though, we just want to have a look at our settings, because I showed earlier how to get the point information in, how your point is going to look, all that information in using the description key set, again, found under settings, point, and description key set. What I didn't mention, however, is how to get your line work information into your survey. So this is how all of your survey lines are going to be drafted up, what layer they're going to be on, whether or not they're a 2D, 3D, or even just a regular break line. All that information is controlled through the survey line sets table. Again, you can see here, I have access to a numeric, alpha, and then a second alpha and numeric code set. Individual layers will set individual layers for each of your point codes. These two here, however, will have set layers for their points and codes. Looking at the interface here, you can see we have toggles for the break line, the 2D line work, and the 3D line work. Break lines can be created without either of the other two line works being formed. You can then interact with the break lines using the Survey Line Manager. This toggle here decides whether or not a 2D line is going to be created in the drawing, and you can set what layer it comes in on using the 2D layer option here. Each of the layers listed within this list are directly found within Civil 3D. It is for this reason that we highly recommend you create a drawing template, a .dwt, which holds all of the layers already within your drawing. This way, whenever you start a new drawing, you simply open that DWT, save it as the drawing you wish to be, and then you have all of your layer and your description key set information preloaded and ready to go. Next, you have the 3D line work. Again, this controls whether or not a 3D line will be created for these points, and also what layer it is going to be on. You do not need the 2D and 3D layers to be the same. These can be completely separate. Down here, we have the master controls for this. If these are not ticked on, it will ignore all the information found within this setting here, excluding the break lines, which will always follow the rules you have set here. If output 2D line work is ticked on, it will follow the rules that you've set here and create a 2D line for each of the codes you have listed. You can see here that output 3D line work is not ticked on. This means that the software will not create 3D line work regardless of if it is ticked on here. For anyone in the audience or whoever who sees this and does not know the concept of string numbers, e.g., let's say I want to pick up the edge of bitumen on two different sides of the road, I could pick up the first side of the road as EB01, and it would string all my EB01s together, and then I could make a break, go to the other side and go EB02, and it would string all of those ones together, not confusing, not stringing the first side of the road to the second side of the road. If you, however, have done everything without string numbers, so you've picked up everything as EB, no string number, you can toggle this off to have everything string by point number and by point code. Once you've set all this up, if you've made any changes, you are able to set this as a global setting. This means that it gets saved to your global settings anytime you open up a new job. This file will be updated to match the changes you have made. Once done, go apply and close to apply those changes to your drawing, and you're ready to start importing your data. Now, the way to start bringing in your data is to go to import and reduce. This will bring up the connect interface. Dropping down file, you can go to new project and then type in a project name. In this case, we're going to call this the Jones Oval. And then for anyone doing the method of using point numbers as their date, so let's say you picked up a point and you want to use the year, month, day, and then the point number, you can go into advanced and you'll want to select Civil 3D points, use point name to store point number. Now, the reason for this is that Civil 3D doesn't recognize any points over a certain value. And if you're doing it in the way of year, month, day, and then point number, that exceeds for 2022, that exceeds the amount that Civil 3D is able to recognize. By toggling this on, you will be able to read that information as the point name, which doesn't have that same limit. Now, once you're done, go create project, and that will set up the project ready for you to work with. What this means is that we're able to bring in a multi-day surveys without any issue, as everything is being saved under that project. Now, I wish to set a name for my raw data to differentiate it from any other data I might bring in. So I'm just going to call it day one. And then I'm going to select a new file to work with. So I'm just going to go into demo. And for today, I'm going to be bringing in an SDR file. So I'm just going to double click that, and then I'm going to go to add. That will load all of that SDR files data right into Connect for me to work with. So you can see it's all listed here. One really cool thing about this is that if I select any of these points, we'll say this one here, and I want to make a change, I can come over to this interface over here after I've selected the point I wish to change. And I can go, okay, that wasn't a distance of 168. It was actually a distance of 178. I can then click off of that point, and that edit has now been highlighted yellow. Now, anything that has been highlighted yellow means that it has been changed from its raw observed value. If I want to bring it back to its raw observed value, I can simply right click and go reset item. It'll then ask, do you want to reset to its original raw data value? You can go yes, and that will reset it back to its original value. If I scroll down now, you won't see any yellow in my drawing as everything has been reset. Or sorry, that point has been reset. If I do wish to apply it to all of them, I can go up to edit and then reset all items to original. This will scan through the entirety of the raw data and reset everything it finds to its original raw value. If I wish to add any information to this, so let's say I want to add an instrument height, I can select the point, and just keep in mind anything you add will be added to the line under the one you have selected. So I have here 0.1007. The point I'm about to add will be added to the line underneath it. So I'm going to right click and go add item. You can then drop down this here and see all of the different options for adding data to this. So I want to add an instrument height. You get a little description down here saying exactly what you're going to be adding. And I'm just going to add 1.60 and 1.55 my instrument heights. We can see that 1007, I've added the new height underneath it, and it's been highlighted green, showing that this is new information that has been added to the raw data value, the raw data. Now, we never wish to delete any of your data. Even if it's been added, we don't want to remove any of it. And the reasoning for this is that we always want you to be able to go back to that data. You've obviously put it in there for a reason. We want you to have access to it. So instead, what we can do is we can ignore it. So this one here obviously doesn't match my previous height. I need to get rid of it. I don't want it to be used. I can right click and go set ignore status. Now what this does is it'll cross out all of the values within that line, and it will highlight the entire row gray, symbolizing that this point is not being used by the software. We're not touching this point. We don't want to look at it anymore. Go get rid of it. To bring it back into the survey, I simply have to right click and go set ignore status again. And that point has now been re-added to my survey. So if we want to apply control to this data set, there are two ways of doing so. We'll go through one now, and we'll continue this flow until we get to the end of working with this job. And then what I'll do is I'll open up another drawing after we finish working with it, and I'll show you how to transform the data in a very similar way. Now, we want to go to Control and go to Control Editor. This will open the Control Data interface where you've got a few options to work with. Earlier, I mentioned with the Traverse adjustment, you're able to pull information back into the control data that you see here. That is through this option here. By going Set Selected Control, you're able to use a variety of techniques, such as by Kogo point, by simply selecting the Kogo point in the drawing, by CAD pick, selecting the points and selecting which one it's going to be applied to. Point number, if it sees a 001 in the drawing, it's going to update the coordinates based on that 001 in the drawing. All of that information. However, you're also able to create update Kogo points from here. If I run create update Kogo points here, it's only going to bring in my control data. It will not bring in any of the other data, only this one. You can then do the Traverse adjustment, bring in back the control into here to apply it to the rest of your survey. The other method is to go import control file. If you have a control file ready to go, and I'll just open this one up quickly here, you are able to bring this information directly into the control data interface. So I'm going to double click on it. It'll then ask what file format do you want to use. In this case, I know it's the point easting northing zenith description, as this is the same file from earlier, and I'm going to go OK. It's then going to scan through all these points and apply the new control to them. Some of you may have noticed that it hasn't updated within Connect itself yet, and it's only been applied to the control data. And that's so you can ensure that everything is as you expect it to be before going to apply changes to apply this to the drawing. Again, because these have been changed from their raw values that have been extracted from the total station, they have been highlighted yellow to show that they have been changed. Now, if you wanted to visualize this before bringing any of the data into your survey, or you've done some kind of survey where you're wanting to check the radiations, you can actually use the 2D viewer. This is a great tool for just ensuring that all of your radiations have been picked up from where you expect them to have been picked up from. So if we have a look here, we've got a number of different things going on. We've got all of our point information shown here along with all of our lines. If I actually move this out of the way a bit, if I select one of these lines it'll actually go straight to where that line is within Stringer Connect, allowing you a great way to switch between this and Connect, do your edits, see the change within the 2D viewer, and continue working. Now, I'm only operating on one monitor here as Zoom only allows that, but I can have these on 2 separate monitors and do my changes as I'm going, along with having Civil 3D in the background for me to work with. So a bit more information on this. All of our instrument stations have the little badge icon here. This is saying this is an instrument station, you've shot in radiations from here. I'm just highlighting my importance. You've also, however, got these little red circles. Now, these little red circles are actually saying, we've checked the orientation report and we think something might be wrong here. You're exceeding your tolerance, you might want to go check us out. Now, this tolerance can be set under settings. You have backside check, and at the moment it's set to 0.5 meters. You're able to freely change this and go refresh check to update it. Back under home, however, we have report. Now, by selecting report, you get a report saying how much it's out through the delta, easting, and northing. So you can toggle this on and off as you will. You're also able to toggle off a variety of other functions here. You can toggle on and off the point number, the elevation, and the code, along with an aerial image if you already have one in the drawing. You also have the ability to use watch survey. Earlier, I said if you've got radiations you wish to check, this is a great way to make sure they've been picked up as you expect them to have been picked up. So you've gone out in the field, you picked them up in a certain order, you want to make sure they've all come in correctly. You can scan through and make sure they have actually come through as you expect them to have come through. So that's the 2D viewer. Really cool tool, and I think is really useful moving forward. We've also got the ability, if you wanted to search for individual points or even individual codes, we've got the search and replace option here. Now, this is accessed by simply selecting any of the rows, right-clicking, and going search and replace. This will open the search and replace interface, where we're able to go to record, drop this down, and we're able to select between a number of different records to choose through. Now, in this case, I'm going to search for shot, and then you're able to focus this further by selecting a property. In this case, I want to set, we'll search for any codes, and I want to look for anything that has a 104 code. That scans through, looks for any code, but as you can see, I can search for point number, occupied point number, a variety of different things. I'm then able to select these points, and again, it will take me within Civil 3, within Connect, to where those points are. A great way to just scan through your data and find anything you may be looking for. So now that I've gone through Stringer Connect, what we want to do is we want to actually bring this information into the drawing. So I'll shrink this down a bit. And what we want to do is we want to bring this information in. So we want to go create update COGO points. This will create the points in the drawing. As you can see, it's already gone and created them. And then it's going to ask me, do you want to create the survey lines? In this case, I do. However, if you don't want to create them at this step for whatever reason, we have the create survey lines command right here. Now, we then want to select a point group to work with. Now, all of the points when they're imported get applied to a point group. In this case, we want to apply them to we want to apply all of our survey lines to anything found in the controllable Civil 3D point group, as that is where the majority of our points now exist. We then want to drop down survey line table, just make sure we've got the one that we want selected. In this case, I am working with numeric. I do want it on the individual layers, so I'm going to select that one. If earlier you didn't toggle on the COGO point name as point number, because you're using the date method of labeling all of your points, you can also set that here. I'm going to go create survey strings, and it's going to ask me, I've found all of these break lines. What surface am I applying this to? So I'm going to check, yep, the code set looks correct. So yes, you are finding some break lines to work with. I want you to apply this all to the NS surface. I also highly recommend having the breakline file, the FLT file, ticked on. This is a major speed increase. If you do not have this ticked on, each of your breaklines is going to be formed independently. With the FLT file turned on, all of these are condensed down into one breakline file. This can be changed as you wish, however. So I'm going to go yes, and it's going to go through and create all of my line work. And because I've asked it to apply it to a surface, it's already created the surface in the background. Now, even though all of my points have been brought in and I'm able to work with everything here, I have not lost the dynamic connection to my raw data. As you can see here, I can select through all of my points, and it's actually going to where it is in the survey. Now, if I actually edit something here, so let's say I want to edit this one, and I don't want it to be 173, I want it to be 183. I can go create update cargo points after I've edited it, and it's going to automatically move that point for me. If you want to update your Stringer Connect for whatever reason, and you didn't want that point to be moved, but you did change the values here, or you changed it manually and you didn't want it to be moved from where you changed it manually, you can actually use the set ignore status. And through that, you can actually, well, not move your point, because the survey is, well, Connect is ignoring that point now. So any changes I make here, let's say I moved it out here. If I then go create update cargo points, that point is not being recognized by Connect, so it's not going to move it back into place. To move it back into place, I can unset the ignore status. I can reset it back to its original value. And then I can go create update cargo points and move it back to its original location. So again, you're never losing access to your raw observational data. You're always able to use that to update your survey. Once you've brought all this information in, you're going to want to just scan through and make sure everything's correct. Now, we can actually see that a few of our points have been added into our point group that we don't expect to be there. We don't want these ones to be added in. They're not a part of our surface. They're actually our survey marks. The way to get rid of these, or the easiest way I find, is to go to Prospector, drop down point groups, and then you want to click Contourable and go Properties. So right click and go Properties. Here you're able to find the Include and the Exclude tabs. Here you're able to include points that may not be included normally, or exclude points that you may wish to focus further. You're able to use a variety of methods for this, and these are the same across both of them. You're able to use with numbers matching, which I'll use in a second. Elevations matching, this includes setting a range of elevations to work with. Names matching, raw descriptions matching, and full descriptions matching. All of that can be controlled from here. Now, in the interest of time, I'm just going to go with numbers matching, and I'm going to go selection set in drawing. And this will allow me to manually select the points I don't want to be added. So I've selected those, I'm going to go enter, and then I'm going to go apply and OK. And because my point group is attached to my surface, it's gone, okay, these points are no longer being included in this point group. I'm going to remove them from the surface. So just to prove that, I'm going to drop down surfaces. NS is the surface I applied everything to. Definitions, point group, and we can see the controllable point group that we just edited can be found here. Now we'll come back to surfaces a bit later, once we've done a few other bits and pieces. To ensure that all of the codes within your survey are what you expect them to be, you've got the code report function here. Now the code report function allows you to scan through your survey and make sure everything is what you expect it to be. So I'm just going to set the point group I want it to scan through, because you're able to set any of the point groups found within your drawing. And then you can choose what code set it's going to be comparing it against. Make sure that highlight codes not in Civil 3D description key set is ticked on to compare everything to the description key set under settings. Looking through here, we can see that a few of these have been highlighted gray. Any that have been highlighted gray means that these codes do not exist within the description key set, and you're going to want to have a look at them. So there are a few ways to go about doing this. If I wanted to edit each individual point because I knew that it wasn't correct, I can double click on the code, and then that will bring up a list of all of the points that currently have that code attached to it. I could then go around and edit all of them. We'll see a method a bit later on that allows for mass editing of the point code. I'd highly recommend that, and I'll mention that when I get to it. Or you're able to add unclassed codes to point code set. This will add it to the description key set, and then you're able to go in and edit it. Keep in mind, however, they will be set as defaults. So if you brought in a code and it doesn't know what point style to apply, it's just going to apply a default point style to it. You'll have to go through, check, and make sure everything is as you expect. Now, you can actually see here that the point layer does not have to align with what's in the description key set. That's because we also have the survey string settings, which is a separate interface. You are able to update both using the commands found within the survey string settings. So now that we've gone through and we've made sure that all of our codes are what we expect them to be, we're able to have a look at the editing capabilities. So again, if you wish to create survey strings at this point, you can through the create strings. You can also delete all strings here, so you can recreate them without having double ups and such. But you also have the survey line manager. Now, the survey line manager is a brand new interface where you're able to do all of your edits rapidly. It also gives you a focused, dedicated interface so that whatever you have selected is what you're going to be editing. If I select the point line here, you can see I've now got access to all of my line work tools. Or if I select the point, I've got access to all of my point tools. Going back to home, let's just do a quick run through of what you can find here. So first up, we've got the live output. Very useful if you've got a drawing with a truly phenomenal amount of points or older hardware. What this means is that all of your edits will be applied to the editor, and then once you close the editor, then it will apply all of the changes to the survey. Now, at the moment, with this ticked on, I will show you as I go, but as I make edits to this, you will dynamically see changes being applied to the DWG at the same time. Next up, we have a toggle for what is being shown within this editor. So I can toggle on point number, elevation, and code. Personally, I like having the point number and the code shown. The elevation I generally have turned off, but you can have all of these toggled on and off as well. You're also able to work with the size of the text, so I generally go for medium to make it easier to visually see. You're also able to toggle on the survey strings on and off. Very useful if you're only wanting to work with points and don't want to accidentally select any of the line works. You can also control the thickness of the lines here. Now, utilities are the controls that control global settings within the drawing. By pulling this down, you can see we have a few options here. What I'll actually do first is I will bring in my aerial image. So I'm just going to go map, insert, and I'm just going to bring in a JPEG file. Now, the JPEG file that I'm importing actually has a JDW attachment, which means that it's able to automatically give itself a coordinate system and, pull it onto what I expect it to be. So I'm just going to send this back quickly and fade it so we can still see our survey. Now we can see our survey a bit clearer. And if I go back to the survey strings manager, I can drop down utilities and go add aerial image, and then select the aerial image and use that as a background. Very good for being able to visually see what I'm doing. Next up, we have the AI solver. Very useful if you've come back to the office and you found you've got what I like to refer to as a spaghetti job. So all of your strings are going everywhere. You've got break lines everywhere, crossing break lines everywhere that you don't know what to do with. Running the AI solver will look at your survey and go, okay, what's the best solution I can come up with, and apply it to the survey for you. This will not change any point numbers. It's only going to look at the survey lines and do its best to get a best result. The other one, the next one I'll cover is delete all segments by length. What this does is that you are able to enter a length of your choosing, and any segments, any line segments that exceed that length will be automatically removed from your survey. Next up, we have the convert codes. Very useful if your company is running both alpha and numeric coding. If you've sent out one surveyor one day and they've done everything in alpha, you've sent someone out the second day and they've done everything in numeric, you're able to use this command to convert alpha to numeric and numeric to alpha. If you have any custom codes, you can use the code converter editor to enter these custom codes and change them over using that method. Next up, we have the crossing break lines report, a very powerful and very useful tool for checking for crossing break lines. By selecting through here, it takes you directly to where each of these crossing break lines is, and you can then use the variety of tools you have available to you to check and resolve these break lines. There is another way to look for self-intersecting break lines, which is over under survey strings. If I look through here, you'll see that a number of these just have the white outline. But down here, we've got two that are highlighted blue. Now, if a survey line is highlighted blue, it means that that string is self-intersecting and you need to, well, you should do something about it. We'll have a look at resolving those in a few moments. Next up, however, we've got the parameters tool. So the parameters are additions to a raw description, a points raw description, that allow you to do what I like to refer to as drafting in the field. Each of these can be applied on site while you're at the survey in the field. And once you bring them back to the office, the software will see these and automatically update with the information. Opening up the point parameters tool is where you're able to set what those parameters are. So if I create a point, let's say 601.01, if I then want that to start arcing for whatever reason, I can put a .f, so 601.01.f, to have it start arcing. And you have a variety of different commands here to work with. If you don't want to work with them here, you have a few areas where you're able to work with them. If I go back to Stringer Survey, you can see a number of them are actually listed here for you to apply. You can also apply them by right-clicking on the point and going to Edit Code, and then right-clicking on the code and having those options there. You've also got the ability to add templates, and templates are added in a much similar way. Now, what these allow you to do is that, let's say you had the edge of bitumen, inverted curve, and backer curve. Instead of picking up all three, if they had a uniform, if they were uniformly going around at the exact same vertical height the entire way, what you could do is you can create a template, meaning you only have to pick up one of those points and it will create the rest of the information from there. The software comes with a number of pre-set up templates that you can see here that can be applied by having in this case, DSH, to create that parameter, that template. To edit these templates or create new ones, you can go to Settings, Create Edit Templates, and here you are able to edit them and create them. So I'll just open up an easier one to visualize. So you can see here we have CL. That's going to be your starting point. And then everything in the blue columns is going to be to the left-hand side of that CL point, and everything in the right-hand side of it is going to be at the right-hand side. So from CL, we've gone out a horizontal distance of 0.45, and then we've gone up a vertical distance of 0.040. And it's going to create line work that shows these changes as it goes. Now, we'll apply one of these later, but for now, just keep that in mind as a bit of how you go about doing that. From here, you've got auto number, which allows you to reorder the numbers of whatever you have selected. And then you've got edit codes. Now, edit codes, there are two ways to access this. First way is to simply select the option. You are then able to use a variety of different methods to go about filtering this information. So if I only want to look for my 903s, anything it finds with a 903, this includes point numbers, it's going to find and provide for me. If I drop this down, we're able to focus this further. So if I only want to look for 903s with in the first code, I can set it up to only search for that. My preferred method of using it, however, is to find a line I wish to edit, select it, right click and go edit codes. This will automatically bring up all of the points that were assigned to that point line or point string and allow me to do edits for it. Again, we'll look at doing further edits once we get a bit deeper into this software. So if I wanted to start editing any of the line work, I can actually select the line in question. And again, the ribbon is going to update to show me those edits. You've got a variety of different ones to work with here. Point numbers will allow you to reorder by point number, distance to next, manual select, AI solver. All of these are a variety of different ways of restringing your points. What I do want to show is while I do this edit, let's just focus in a bit more here. And then I'm going to zoom in here. So we've got this same area shown here, and I'm going to apply a distance to next using the first point. So that has gone and updated, but what you may have noticed is it's already gone and updated my Civil 3D drawing based on what I did within the Survey Strings Manager. So you always have that dynamic link between them unless you toggle off the live output option found here. A few other really cool commands if you want to delete a segment. So I've got this area here. Let's say I want to delete the middle. I can go delete segment and simply select the line, and that will remove that segment. Now, what some of you may have noticed there is that by selecting one of the commands, we'll select one of these other ones. If I go delete segment, all the other line work vanishes, meaning I can only edit the one that I have selected. To exit a command, simply hit escape, and that will backpedal you back to the home. Another really cool tool is delete by distance. Really handy if you have a number of lines that exceed a certain amount that you didn't expect. Let's say you started picking up a gutter, and then you started picking up the exact same, or you started picking up a different gutter, but it used the same string, and you had a line going across the middle of your survey. You could come in here, go delete segment by distance. Here you can see, okay, I've got one segment that's between 0 and 5 meters in length, 4 segments that are between 5 and 10, and 1 segment that is between 10 and 20. In this case, I want to get rid of the one between 10 and 20, as I don't believe that to be correct. So I can come in here and go anything over 10 meters, I want to get rid of, split survey string, and it's going to remove this line here. So you can see that segment has now gone. You've got a few other options to work with here as well. Split string allows you to split the string by dual coding either side of it. Join string allows you to join 2 strings together, and join string creates a new survey string between the 2 points that you have selected. So now let's move on to point editing. Just quickly. So by selecting a point, you'll see that it updates the ribbon to show all of the point editing tools that we have to work with. You're able to access the current point code editing ones by selecting this option here, or by simply right-clicking within the survey after you have a point selected and going edit code. It's a very easy way to apply your edits. You've also got the ability to do multi-coding here. So we're able to do up to 4 codes on this one individual point. So what I mean by this, I'll select this one here as it works a bit nicer. Let's say we wanted to attach this line here to this point. So I'm simply going to apply a second code of 90302. And it'll automatically update my string to have both strings going to that one point. To remove this, simply go back to that point, right click and go edit code, and simply remove that. That line will then update to show, okay, that's no longer connected. My multi-coding no longer exists for that point. You're good to do your edits. You've also got the ability to update your point number. So if I select number, it'll then bring up the edit point number interface. Let's say I want to make it 0.2000. I can go okay. And it's going to update that point to 2000. What you may have noticed is that it's actually kept the exact same string though. It hasn't changed based on the point number. And that's because the string is actually using the order found within this interface here. So you can see it's going from 0.1184 to 0.2000 to 1186. If you wish to edit this order at all, you can use the arrows down here to work with it from there. Next up, well, you've got a few other ones. You can match code to match two individual codes to each other. So whatever code you select second is going to apply, well, have the first code applied to it. You've got the ability to swap point numbers and then append code, allowing you to, well, create a new point in the middle of other ones. You've also got the parameter commands. Now, earlier I mentioned I like to refer to these as drafting in the field. I will now show you why. So selecting this point here, we've got three corners of a building. We weren't able to get that fourth one. So what we can do is we can apply a rectangle parameter. Applying a .r to the end of this will have both of those lines connect down here, just using a bearing intersection one. If in the field I coded this as 60210.r, I'll actually make the text a bit bigger. If I coded this as 60210.r in the field and came back to the office with that, the software will dynamically recognize that that .r means I want a rectangle, and it will create that extra information for me without me having to run any of these extra commands. Exact same for if I wanted to close off a series of lines. So I picked up a pit here, for instance. I know it's a building, but we'll say it's a pit. I wanted to close it off. I can go close, and that will close off that line. One other thing to note is that it doesn't have to be on the last point as I selected there. You could have it on any point in the survey, at any point on the survey string, and it will close off or make that rectangle for you. You've also got the ability to create arcs. So if I select this point here, I can go arc, and that will arc that from then on until I select line to switch it back to a line. Again, all of the options that you see here, so the .l and such, can be freely edited using the parameters. So if I didn't want it to be .f, I instead wanted it to be .k, then anytime I put a .k, it's going to start arcing. If I want to apply a template is going to be applied to a line. Any point on the string you apply this to, it's going to apply it to the entire string. So in this case, I want to apply it to the first code. I'm going to go to templates, and I'm going to select DSH. So it's applying a .dsh to the end of that code. I'm going to go apply. You can see it's gone and it's created those additional lines on the edges to show my, well, the invert basically. And it's done that for the entirety of the line. So those are a number of the tools you can go through to do your edits. There are more here, but in the interest of time, those are some of the ones that I find to be the most useful and, well, good to use. So we'll close this off now, and you can see that all of my edits have been applied to my survey based on what I've done within that interface. Now, yeah, I'll quickly go on to point groups. Point groups here, the best thing about the point groups option here, in my opinion, is the ability to scan through your survey, make sure everything's correct, and go into edits, edit selected. And here you're able to do things such as increase the point numbers, edit the elevation, set code, replace codes, dynamic position of your blocks, and a variety of other really cool options here. But we also have the export KML option. Now the export KML, I won't open it here, but I will just describe it. The KML allows you to export all of your line work and your point information out to things like Google Earth and Nearmap. It can then be used to set up an online database where you're able to pull that information back from Google Earth into Civil 3D and be able to find all of your coordinate information for your instruments and such. I do recommend looking into this, as having a digital database to work with could be a really cool thing to have for your future surveys. Say you did a job over in this area, you could type that address in, see that you've done a job over here, find the instrument information, read it into your survey, and you're good to go. Transform points we'll cover later. We'll have a look at multi-symbols. Multi-symbols allows you to basically, as it is currently, we've set it up to allow you to apply multiple symbols to a point based on a series of parameters. So I'll scroll in, actually I'll close this up first. I'll scroll in here. Here we have two different trees. The first one has 3 parameters, as you can see here, 0.5, 6, and 11, and it's got a point code. A point code does not count as a parameter, so you just keep that in mind. Over here, however, we have a tree with a single parameter. Now, what we want to do is we want to apply 2 to 3 blocks, depending on how you personally have it set up at your company, or 1 block. And the way we do this is through multi-symbols. Opening this, I'm just going to go add from file, and you'll see we have the ability to add trees by diameter and by radius. We've also broken this up into 2D and 3D blocks. The reasoning for this is that we found that surveyors were either bringing in a 2D block or a 3D block. They were not bringing in both at the same time. You can bring in both at the same time. Both of these files can be loaded up and used. However, for this exercise, I'm just going to be using the 2D. So looking through this, the software is going to search a point group. So I'm actually just going to confirm, make sure that point group is good. So we can see here that all of our points for trees are listed in here. Oh, wrong one. So I'm just going to update that one. You can see they're all listed in here. And then I just want to make sure everything's what I expect. So I'm going to drop this down and go Civil 3D trees. I want the blocks to be created on CSD PT vegetation layer, and then we can have a look at what's going to be occurring. So the software is going to search point group tree Civil 3D, and any points it finds with 1 parameter, so 2012, it's going to apply 1 block, which is going to be the tree block, at scale 1, which is the 2 parameter. We haven't got any trees here that have only 2 parameters, but we do have a few with 3. As you can see here, we've got TR 0.5, 6, and 11. So it's going to go through and it's first going to create a tree trunk radius block at scale 1, which is the 0.5. It's then going to go through and it's going to look for tree canopy radius. Sorry, it's going to create a tree canopy radius block at scale 2, which is the 6 meter one. You're also able to, if you have a 3D block, use the Z scale to scale it in the 3rd dimension, in which case it would use scale 3, which would be the 11. So I'm going to go create update symbols, and you can see here it's created 2 blocks to represent the, well, in fact, I have 3 parameters and I want to create 2 blocks. Well, for this one, it's only created 1 individual block, as there's only 1 parameter here for it to work with. And it's gone ahead and it's done that for the entirety of my survey. Next up, we have the group table. So the group table allows you to create a variety of different tables within your survey. Let's call this first one legend. And then it'll ask you to choose the location for your table. In this case, you want to make sure you're selecting the upper left-hand corner of where you're expecting the table to come in. So I've selected that one. You then want to select the point group you wish to work with. Again, Controllable Civil 3D for me. And then you've got the styles. Now the styles are the variety of different tables you're able to import. default is going to be a basic legend table. A point report is going to show you all of the current codes in the drawing and all the points associated with those codes. And then the survey line report is going to do the same as the point report, but for all of your line work. And we'll create all of these as we go, but for now, I'm just going to do default. I'm going to open up a description to work with. So I want to work with numeric, and you can see it's preloaded in all of my descriptions. I can then go to create update table, and it's going to create that information here. Now, for any codes that, if you set default, any codes that have a line within the drawing, it's going to show the line and not the symbol. Any that have the symbol but not the line, it's going to show the symbol. Lines take precedence over symbols, however. So a line will always be shown unless you specify otherwise. If we drop down styles, we can go to legend, code, line, symbol description to show both at once. If I wish to create a second table to work with, let's go add table, and this time I want to go point report. So I want to select the upper left-hand corner again. And then I'm going to change the heading name from legend to points. I can then go down to style, and this time I want to create a point report, create update table. And now I have a points table that I can view all the information for. So looking at this, I've got 4 points that are on the 018 point code. Average elevation of all those points, minimum, maximum, and again, the description. If you actually want to change this, I can drop down style. Let's say I actually want a survey line report, not a points report. I can change that, go create update table to have all of my line work come through, or my line table come through instead. What some of you may have noticed is that it isn't bringing in information it thinks is irrelevant. In this case, for instance, I don't have any line work or any points for that matter that are 003s, which is a title block. And therefore it's not being shown on my line table, and it's not being shown on my legend table. It's not information that the group table finds relevant because it's not being used in your survey. You can add it, you can get rid of it. If I actually open group tables, all of these options can be toggled. So let's say I didn't want 018 or 001 to be shown. I can go create update table after toggling those, and they both get turned off. Hit it again to toggle them on. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to very quickly make some additional points, and we're just going to have a look at A, a volume report, and B, a comparison report. So I'm just going to go manual and just create a few points going through here. So we'll set these to be NS at an elevation of 100. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm going to be adding these points as an individual surface, and I'm going to be removing them from the other surface. So I've got 3 points created here, just for a basic one. And what I want to do is I want to remove these from the contourable one. So I'm going to go properties, exclude, selection set in drawing. I'm going to select these 3 points. So they're now being excluded from this point group. I then want to create a new point group to work with. So right click on point groups and we'll just keep the default value here. And then I want to go properties, and this time I want to go include with numbers matching and select these 3 here. So these 3 are now being applied to their very own point group. However, we want them to be applied to a brand new surface so that we can do a surface comparison. So I want to create a brand new surface. We'll just keep the defaults for now, but this is where you can choose the properties of it. I'm going to drop this down, drop down definition, and go to point groups, go to add. And then I just want to add that point group 01 that I just made. This will create a brand new surface, as you can see here. And we are now able to go about doing a volume report between the 2 of them. To do so, simply select one of your surfaces, doesn't matter which one, and then go to the volumes dashboard. That will open this interface here, the volumes dashboard. And what we want to do is we want to create a brand new volume surface. Opening this, you're then asked to select a base surface. So in this case, NS, and a comparison surface, surface 02. Go OK, and that will provide you with a volume report. Generally, you'd have more than 3 points to work with and a much bigger surface. But for the purposes of this exercise, that is how you would go about doing a volume report. If you wanted to do a comparison report of any kind, you've got the compare report interface found here. And by opening up this, you have access to all the variety of reports. Now, because we've actually just created that brand new point group, we actually need to tell the software that that now exists within the survey before we can go about applying them to our compare points. The way to add this is actually through the Civil 3D points link command found here. So you can see that point group 01 is not currently linked. We want to set this to be linked. If you find that for any reason, any of the ones from this point on are not appearing, the point group is not appearing, go into Civil 3D points link and just ensure that it has been toggled on, or it has been toggled as linked. So now, in this case, I want to go point to surface. So I'm going to go to point to surface, drop down point groups. I'll just restart compare report. Yep, we can see point group 01 is now available to be used. I want to compare it to surface NS. And if you have any alignments currently within the drawing, you're also able to apply those to it for additional information. You can then go update report, and this will show you your values. You are able to push this information out back into the drawing if you wish. And you're also able to push this out to Excel. Now, if you have an Excel template already set up for exporting this information out to, you can actually browse for a file. And then using the information found here, you are able to export it out in a variety of ways. In this case, at the moment, point number is going to export out at start A1 on sheet 1. If you have multiple sheets, simply provide the sheet name you wish it to be applied to, and what start column and start row you wish to use. You're also able to simply create a new document. So I'll just save this to the desktop and call this export year 1. So we're exporting this one here, and I'll change it from A1 to A10 and go create update. And this will export that file with my point numbers now moved to A10. So that's how you'll go about doing the compare report. Now, for anyone who's wishing to view the 3D model of the surface to either get a better understanding of the rise and fall of the land or any of the other information, you can open up Model Viewer. Now, Model Viewer is a great way to visualize your surface. So I'll just turn off surface 2 here, but as you can see, you can actually have multiple surfaces loaded in at once. What I want to do though is I can actually apply the aerial image as a background for my surface. So in this case, I want to go image from drawing. However, if you want, you are able to pull an imagery directly from Google Maps, Bing Maps, or if you have the credentials for it, New Maps. So in this case, I already have one in the drawing that I wish to use. So I'm going to select this one, and then I'm going to go OK. Once I've selected that, I can go OK again. And it has brought it in, a 3D model of our survey. Now from this point, you have a variety of different options to use. You're able to set the visual style as you wish. So if I drop this down, I highly recommend turning on rendered with edges to show all of the triangles that are currently being used in your survey. And you're also able to mess with the exaggeration of all of your mesh. I like having this at 3. At 3, you are able to very easily see any jumps in elevation, along with not deforming the surface so much that you no longer recognize it. As you can see here, I have a nice fall of the land. I can see any changes in my nice flat footy oval. And I can see over here, okay, the land's rising up for the car park. So I'd be able to go about and make any edits I need. For the next part, what we're going to do is we're actually going to drape our survey information on this. So I'm going to turn off the triangles for now. And we're actually going to go into survey. Now within survey, we want to select the point group that we wish to work with. In this case, contourable civil 3D. That's just going to bring that up. And then we want to choose the label style that we wish to work with, in this case, survey. So now what's actually happened is all of our information is actually loaded into this drawing. We simply need to start toggling it on. So you can see by me toggling on the display, all of this information is being brought in. With the labels, you are able to choose how much information is actually being shown through these options here. And you can just see I've got all of my point information shown by these little orbs and all of my line work information. We can see exactly where it's been draped on my surface. A great way of just going through and making sure everything is as you intend it to be. If you do wish to output this for any reason, you've got outputs export, and you're able to push this out. If they have Adobe, 3D PDF is a great method. If they don't have any kind of viewer, you're able to download a standalone model viewer, which can be accessed from our website. And you're also able to push out a HTML for anyone who has Google Chrome. So those are the basics of going through or editing your software. What we're actually going to look at now is a quick way of applying a transformation. So the only difference I've done here is that for this survey, I didn't apply a control edit. The control to the survey. So this is currently on arbitrary datum. If I wanted to apply a transformation to this in any way, you're able to do so using the transform points command that is found here. So by opening this up, you then want to select the point group you wish to work with. Again, controllable civil 3D. And then we wish to import the control points that we know we don't really want to adjust from. Sorry, that we want to adjust from. So I'm just going to go to demo and I'm going to select control point coordinates. Select PENZD again. And these are going to be the coordinates that it's going to shift everything to, and we'll get the residuals of all the points that we haven't set the coordinates for. So we've set it for these ones. We want these ones to match the coordinates we've set here. And then we've got the residuals for the remainder of the points. You're able to choose whether or not a Helmert or an Affine transformation is being applied, and you have a number of the residuals found here. And if you wish to raise or lower your survey, you are able to apply a datum shift over here. Once you're ready to apply the transformation, simply go apply transformation. Sure you want to apply it to the survey. We're going to go yes. And everything will then move. Now, I believe I left my control behind, which is why it's pushed me so far out. But you can see now this very clearly matches what we had here. So this is just another way of applying your control, but also having a transformation applied to your entire survey at the same time. Now, we'll very quickly have a look at parcels. So the parcels are actually found under Home. Sorry, Shane, did you have a comment there?
I'd suggest we do the recap Infraworks first and then come back to this.
All right, we'll go for that method then. All right, I will just say though, in case we don't get to come back to it, if you are wanting to apply parcels, and we are planning to do a webinar on this at a later date, they are found under Home and then Parcels under Create Design. Parcels and alignments go hand in hand, so you'll want to brush up on both of those. Now, I'm going to minimize this and we're going to open up Recap, as Recap is where we're going to start our point cloud journey. So this is our third method of import. This is where we go to bring in all of our point cloud information. You can do so through Civil 3D. However, the advised way or the advised workflow is to bring in your data with Autodesk Recap. Do all of the edits to remove any of your, any of the data you don't wish or your junk data. You can get rid of it through Recap. Then moving it into Infraworks, where you're able to skin the mesh, apply vertical and horizontal features, and then push it back into Civil 3D, where you can then start to do your drafting. Now, in interest of time, I will very briefly go over how you can bring in your data, but we'll be opening the one that you can actually see in the background here. A really cool feature of Recap is that it'll actually store the information in the background. So to quickly get back into the job, you click it and you can get going. So you can go New Project, Import Point Cloud, or if you have photos instead, you're able to use 3D photos to, start up your point cloud. So once you're within here, you create a new project to work with. I highly recommend just creating a place to save everything. Mine's on the D drive, which has a much higher area of space. Go OK, and then you've got 3 different methods of importing your files. Select to import allows you to simply select the files in question and bring them in that way. Select folder allows you to select the entirety of a folder, or you can simply drag and drop the files directly in here. By going select files, you can see a list of all the different file formats that we support or it is supported. Generally, the most common ones you're going to bring in are the .las. However, there are a number of other file formats you are able to bring in here. So that's how you would go about bringing that data in. Once it's brought in, it will start to process all that information, and then you'll be presented with a point cloud similar to what I have on screen at the moment. You can see it all loading in here. So what we have here, we've got the entirety of the point cloud. You can see it all as is. We've got a street we picked up in town. And if I go down to this corner here and I go to scan locations, yeah, it's not going to show me today. We can actually see how many points we've got located within this drawing. Last I checked, it was 130 million points. You just have to take my word for it there. But what we actually want to do here is we want to start stripping out all of the information we don't need. As you can see here, we've got a van. The van's not going to be very useful to our surface. We actually want to remove that information.
Jack, I'm not sure about everybody else, but for me, your mouse is moving, but the recap background is not updating. You're able to quickly just drop your screen share and restart it again. There could just be an issue with caching of the visuals.
So I've just stopped my share. I'm going to start it again. Are you able to see I'm moving my mouse around and it should be updating?
I can see the mouse moving around, but recap itself is not updating. Like, are you zooming in and out?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
can I just have a show of hands? Anybody else not seeing recap itself update? It might just be me, but no, there's a few hands going up. I think we're all suffering the same fate, which could be an issue with what recap's doing to us.
What I will try is I'll try sharing the program.
Yeah.
I'll see if that resolves it. Okay, I should be sharing the program now. Is that working now?
That is working. You just zoomed in?
Yep, I'm zooming in, I'm panning around.
I know we saw it for a moment move, but now there's nothing.
Right. So you can't see any of the movements I'm doing at the moment.
I can see your mouse move, but the actual cloud is static. And
so I've just clipped. Are you able to just see what I've clipped, or is it still showing the point cloud?
No, it's still showing a cloud. And you went down the bottom to run the clip action, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, saw the mouse move, but that was about it.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, I'm in Infraworks. Actually, I need to stop sharing. If I skim over that and I go into Infraworks, is Infraworks having the same kind of behavior, or
No,
are you able to?
Infraworks is fine. So flip back to recap for a moment. Okay, so what we're seeing right now is that vehicle pruned up at a sort of orthographic viewpoint. So,
You can't see it side on at the moment.
No, not side on. So the best you'll be able to do is, and I apologise on behalf of Zoom, the best you'll be able to do, Jack, is probably to talk about an action you're doing. So what Jack has done is he's created what's called a clip boundary, which temporarily hides area, and he's focusing on trying to strip away this vehicle from the cloud. It's this very fine-tuned editing of the cloud. But Jack, what you'll need to do is when you say that you're going to spin the view, you'll have to stop screen share and turn it back on so that people can see it. And then you'll say that you're going to remove it. You'll have to stop screen share and restart it. If you know what I mean, it'll have to be a series of stills.
All right. So I'll stop my share now and I'll reshare. Okay, so we should be looking at the side on of a car at the moment. Yes.
Yeah, we are. It looks like the mystery machine out of Scooby-Doo.
Cool. Okay, so what I've done is I have clipped out all the additional information. So anything that I haven't wanted to accidentally edit in any way, I've made sure to remove. And the reasoning for this is that once I select it, so you should be able to see the box being drawn at the moment. Once I select it, anything within that selection is going to be also chosen. So I'm just going to select this to make it a bit clearer. And then I'm going to stop and share again. So you can see here that a couple of our points have been highlighted, even in the background here. Now, the reason for that is that when I've selected the car, these points in the background were in the crossfire, and therefore it selected those as well. Now, for the purpose of the survey, we don't want to remove those points. We only want to remove this car. So what we want to do, and this is where the real art of doing this comes into play, we want to make sure that the car is as side on as possible. So I'll stop and share again. We want to make sure it's as side on as possible. And then we want to select as much of the car as we can without removing any of the road. Once you've selected the car and as much of it as you can, go delete, and that will remove it from play basically. So by deleting points, you're not removing them entirely from that original point cloud. You're able to get them back if you wish, but by pressing delete, you will no longer have them once you've exported into something like Infraworks or into something like Civil 3D. And you would go about just removing all of this dead data. And once you're done, you can go unclip all to bring all the remainder of your survey back and just go about removing any of this other data. This can include things such as people walking through as you've been picking up the data. It can include cars, people moving around, dogs moving around. All that information can be stripped out using this method. Once you're done, out of curiosity, Shane, are you able to see the ribbon opening or not at all?
Ribbon, yes.
Ribbon opens. Okay, so once you're done, you would go home and then to the little download icon. From the little download icon, you'll see one that looks like it's going in the opposite direction. That is the export option. And you'll want to export the point cloud out into Infraworks. So this just has to export out to an RCP. And what this means is that if you have a multi-scan survey, so you picked it up from multiple locations, instead of having 4 or 5 files, it's all being condensed down to one single file. And this way you're not having to import multiple at the same time. So once you're done, you would move into Infraworks. Now, within Infraworks, you would create a new model, and from there you would bring in your information. Now, in the interest of time, I've already brought in the point cloud, and I have already skinned it along with a few other bits and pieces. Now, to actually bring in the information, you'll want to go to Manage, and then to this little, don't know how you describe that, water tank-like icon here. This is Data Sources. Once you're in Data Sources, just to confirm, you're able to see everything I'm doing at the moment. Going to take that as a yes.
Yes, Jack.
Yep. So to bring in the information, you want to drop down this option here, and then you've got the ability to bring in a point cloud. So you can bring in the point cloud that you've exported from Recap and use that and begin skinning with it. Furthermore, you're able to bring in a variety of other information into your point cloud, things like a raster image, shape files, a variety of different things can be brought in. Here you can actually see that what I've done is I've brought in ground imagery. So if we have a look at some of our surface, we can actually see there's an aerial image attached to some of it. And we've also brought in originally, well, we haven't brought in, but you can bring in a surface. But what I've done here is I've actually built one in the background already. So once you've brought in your point cloud and you're ready to start working with it, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to skin it. And you're going to want to run this option here to do so. This will process the point cloud and will generate the terrain for you to be able to strip linear and vertical features off of it. It's automatically going to go through and it's found just one point cloud to work with. If you do have multiple within the drawing, you are able to work with that. And then we've got what we're actually wanting to do with it. So it's going to go through and it's going to process the, surface. It's going to process our linear features. So it's going to find as much information as it can for that, vertical features, and then we've got a few other options. Now, optimum is not the highest level of scanning it's able to do. You can go more detail. Keep in mind though, that for the survey or the point cloud that I have here, when I ran it up using my computer, it took me about 4 hours. If we go more detail, well, I actually gave up on more detail. It took me 6 hours and yep. But optimum I find is the best option as it gives you a good balance between speed and stripping out all the features that you need. You're able to also choose whether or not to export the process file. I prefer not to do it at this step, as generally I want to export it at a later step once I've gone through and made sure everything is as I wish. You will then go start processing and it will start to strip it in the background. You can do other things while this is going, so it doesn't lock you out of using the rest of the software or the computer. Now you can actually see here that I've got some line work already loaded into my drawing. The way to get this kind of line work is actually to run the linear feature extraction command that is found here. Now, by opening this up, we can go to more styles. You can see we have a variety of styles here to work with. I highly recommend using the one that is relevant to it. For instance, you can see here what I've done is we've picked up 2 different sets of lines on either side of the line work here. Now, what's happened though is that this one has been picked up as line work, paint stripe, sorry. So this one's been picked up as paint stripe going forward, but the one on the other side has been picked up as center line. So when this is exported, it's actually going to export with the label style PS for paint stripe, or the one on the other side will be exported with the label style centerline. Now, for this reason, I highly recommend making sure that the one you have selected is the one you're intending to use. Now, let's say I wanted to strip some more features. I wanted to get a bit more information on here. So we'd find an area where we've got very clear line work to work with. So let's say I wanted to go along here. I can open this up and go paint stripe. And then I simply select 2 features that are similar. Now it's going through and it's going, okay, what can I find that matches this point cloud intensity? I'm going to apply this. I'm going to use this to automatically extract my line work. So it's found quite a long one looking at this, and it's creating that line work in the background for us to be able to, well, review basically. So it's gone through, it's gone a bit wonky, so I won't keep that one. So you're able to simply delete it if you're unhappy with it, but that's the process for how you would go about doing so. If you wish to edit the line work after it's been created, you've got these vertices on the line work that you're able to work with, these little cubes, and you can use that to maneuver the information around. I'll also say you need to make sure that what you're selecting is the area, or is what you're actually expecting to select. So here I've got the top of curb, and you can actually, if I go side on, you can see it's got a nice, you can see it's a lot higher than the information we have down here, and it's correctly gone about, and it's done everything above that curb line, which is what we, or the inverted curb, as we'd expect. You can see here visually that it actually dips down, and that's because we've got a sidewalk here which you're able to walk across. So you would go around, you do all of your linear feature extraction, and just make sure everything is as you intend. So you can maneuver it around if you wish to combine them. So let's say I wanted this one to be attached to this one. Simply drag the ends together and go merge or connect lines. Connecting will simply have the two lines at the same point, or merge lines will merge two lines together. Keep in mind, if you've got different elevations between the last two, or the points you are trying to connect, it will find the average between those 2 points. If you're wanting to separate line work for whatever reason, you can right click on one of these different segments and go split. That will actually separate it out from it, and you can then delete the line work or edit it however you wish to work with it. Now, vertical feature extraction, on the other hand, is a little bit simpler. We've got the vertical feature extraction tool found here. Now, by running this, simply selecting the option, it will go through and it'll scan through the entirety of your drawing to find vertical features to add to your survey data. So you can actually see here, it's added a tree where it thinks it's found tree information. It's found signs where it thinks it's found signs. And it's applied them all at the scale it believes them to be at. So we can actually look through here. It's got a light post there, another tree here. All of that is being added. And now when you export this information, while it won't export out the objects, it will export out the object information. By selecting this option here, you will be told it's a 3D model, vegetation, and the tree type. So you're going to want to make sure you go through and make sure that each of these objects are what you expect them to be. You'll also see I have a number of yellow cubes within the survey. This means that it's not sure what that object is. And you should just go through and make sure it is an object you're wishing to export and change it to whatever object you wish it to be. In this instance here, this is a light post. I'm going to want to select it. I'm then going to select a rule style, more styles. You'll then be able to select between the different models. So in this case, I want it, looks like it's going to be under traffic. It's a traffic light. I'm going to apply that. The traffic light gets applied. You're able to then just maneuver it around as you wish. And yeah, that will then be exported as a traffic light as such. Now, to export our information from here, you're going to want to drop down point clouds and go export point cloud and export the information found here. You're also going to want to make sure that your MGA connection is correct before you do so. So at the moment, my save file location is point clouds export, but you're able to freely choose this as you wish. So this will export out all of the points, all of your vertical objects, all of your vertical line work, and all of your transverse vertices. However, it won't export out the skinned model surface. All that information won't be exported through that. To get that information out, you're going to want to go to Present Share and select the Export IMX file format. Again, make sure the target coordinate system is what you expect it to be and that the target file location is where you expect it to be. You'll need these locations to be able to bring the information into Civil 3D. Once you're ready to import, you'd go back to Civil 3D. I will just open up a second drawing here to finish it opening. So you just open up a new drawing to work with. And then to get the information in, it's fairly simple. You simply select the information you wish to import and then drag and drop it in. That will actually import all of the information that you had. So we've got all of our line work down here. But then we want to bring in our IMX file. So to do so, we want to go to Insert, Open Infraworks Model, and we want to find the model that we wish to import. So I'm going to select this one. Just make sure it's the right one, Point Cloud Export. So I'm going to select that. Make sure the coordinate system is what you expect it to be. It should match the drawing coordinate system as you see down here. And then we're going to go Open Model. It's then going to import that model surface into the survey for you to work with. So from there, you're able to go about doing any of your edits. You can zoom in on the points. I select this one here and go to Properties. We can actually see here, so this is a stop sign, and you're able to pull the information out of that as you need. There's a variety of other things you're able to do with this. This is just the method of importing it into here. If you wish to bring in the raw point cloud for whatever reason, you're able to use the option here. And using that point cloud, you are actually able to create a surface based on the point cloud that you've imported using that method also. So I actually believe that's all the time we have for today. We've just hit the 2-hour mark. These are just some of the basics on how you can work with a point cloud. There is obviously more that you can do here. This is just a very basic introduction to it. And we will be covering more on that in the future. Same with parcels. We're doing a webinar on that in a couple of weeks, and that will cover how to go about doing so. With that covered, we've gone through importing using GPS, applying a transformation, applying a least squares adjustment. We've then had a look at importing a raw data file and a variety of different things you can do to edit said file and getting yourself ready for production. So with that, I'll hand off to Shane, unless there are any questions that I should be answering.
No, thank you, Jack. Great presentation. I hope everybody certainly got something out of that to see, certainly outside of the spectrum of just Civil 3D, some of the tools that are useful for surveying jobs that you'll get into. So in terms of questions, I guess we'll invite any late questions to be thrown into the Q&A page. So if you've got any burning questions, please throw to us now. I'll just allow a moment for people to avail themselves of that opportunity. All right, in the absence of any other questions that might come through as I wrap up, thank you very much for attending this webinar. As I did say at the outset, we will be we have been recording this, so we will publish it up for your later consumption or sharing amongst other staff. And if you just chase these email links, you'll sort of find out where you can go to get information, certainly the YouTube page. And yes, as Jack said, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be wrapping back with another session on parcels with a deeper dive. So there's going to be some clunking in the background from me, but that's really it as a wrap up. So again, Jack, thank you very much. Great presentation, and thanks everybody for attending.